Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys. Golden Boy, and I'm here for the overall Life is Strange in 2026 review. So, I played all the games. I didn't exactly do all the side content. For example, I did. Oh my god. It was Before the Storm, and I did that special chapter for Chloe and Max. I didn't do Life is Strange's 2 DLC content. It was for, oh my god, what's it called? The name escapes me. Damn it. Sorry. Yeah, that, and then there was also the DLC for Life is Strange True Colors, which was Wavelengths. I didn't do that. Oh, that's kind of bothering me. It was like super something for Life is Strange too. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, let me continue. So overall, I had a good time. The games are good. That's the overall review. Going into the stories, I loved every story. There weren't any like, oh man, I can't take this anymore. I don't want to be here. No, it was good. All the stories are good, and then it goes into like the dialogue. I really think there was all well written, and some people might question, well, no one really talks like that. No one uses that slang. You have to take in mind that it's based on region, and also, whoever wrote the game has their own experiences, where they live, and obviously they're going to incorporate that into the game as far as dialogue. And people do talk like that. Some people are surprised to hear how we speak in Texas, but yeah, we say certain phrases, say certain things, and it's going to be different from place to place, so you can expect that. But going back into the stories, yeah, definitely Life is Strange 1, strongest story, strongest game out of the series. But you have to take into account Life is Strange, Double Exposure, and then Reunion, which are follow-ups to the main story. So as a whole, pretty solid, pretty strong storyline. But yeah, Life is Strange 1 definitely still the best game out of the entire group, just because for its characters, how it got introduced, its villain. Yeah, Life is Strange 1 had the best villain. Not gonna lie. It's very memorable for those who don't know, who do know. And Exposure, Double Exposure and Reunion only work based on Life is Strange 1, so they can't be standalone games. You couldn't really jump, you couldn't really jump into... I guess you could jump into Double Exposure and then like play Life is Strange 1, as backstory. You can go at it that way, but it still feel off. So I mean, it just depends how you want to look at it. I guess it's possible. I'd have to really think about that one. But yeah, and then the gameplay and the whole player choice, and Square Enix and Deck 9, if I'm not mistaken, really followed up on that, and they stuck true to that belief. Your choices really do decide the fate of these characters, and they set up the entire storyline from the game. And I, as a player, really appreciate that. It really felt meaningful and rewarding to get to certain outcomes in the game, and those player choices really stick with you. In some games more than others. Life is Strange 1, I think back to saving Kate from the rooftop. Life is Strange, the True Colors, when at the end your choices and your interactions with everyone led to everyone on the council supporting you in your final decision, your speech. And there was a possibility that wouldn't happen if you didn't get everyone on your side, which was totally possible, and the game lets you achieve that result. And then in Reunion recently, the big one where let me go ahead into the game. If you prevent the fire, sure, going into the game a bit, there's going to be a fire, and the fire is a constant. And yes, I actually went back and played and identified who would start the fire, but the fire still happens. Because, that's a constant in the whole timeline that can't be changed to an extent. And though you saved everyone, you saved all the students, you still get caught in the fire, but because you made the correct decisions previously and you reach certain outcomes with the characters, you prevent any deaths. And I really appreciate that. Vice versa, if you did fail to discover who started the fire, some people did die. And to you, maybe as a player, you don't necessarily care about them because they're side characters or they weren't exactly wise in their decisions. People still died. And though your main group didn't die, the people you really love, as a player and as Max, in this case, it's still an unfavorable outcome. So I really gotta hand it to these games. Player choice, really well done. Was it always perfect? No. Could have been more. Could have been more impactful. I mean, again, I gotta go back and see all of it again. But yeah, a big a long one, which also I can relate to. Game wise, Life is Strange 2 True Colors, and then Life is Strange 2. Their most meaningful choices came about as you played the game as a whole. And what I mean is, the little choices eventually piled up and culminated into the final decision of the characters at the end of the game. And that's how your overall your choices hugely affected the storyline versus some of the other games like the first one and this and Reunion, where these small particular choices affected segments of the game instead of just only entirely the end. Going on to the gameplay is what it is. It is a very heavily story-driven game, so obviously that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And then there's different mechanics for each game. Some definitely more impactful than others. Max's time manipulation was always solid. In Life is Strange 2, you're not really controlling the character with powers, but more like influencing them. So you don't necessarily get to use your powers as Max would. Then there's True Colors. That one was how should I put this? Unique. It was directly influencing characters, but also not. Because in True Colors, it's you about interpreting people's emotions and then coming to a conclusion about them or setting up dialogue with that character based on their emotions. Because since you have a good sense of what they're feeling and why, etc. And then obviously Double Exposure and Reunion, we go back to Max and Chloe just a bit. Chloe's gameplay was highly limited, and I appreciate that. So yeah, no, definitely a unique experience throughout all the different games. I will say though, for the gameplay in Double Exposure, it wasn't that impactful as far as different as you might think. Well, no. Max's new ability is impactful and cool, but what I'm trying to talk about is the whole Double Exposure aspect in both the photos she takes and just an overall gameplay mechanic. I believe I only used it once in the entire game, and for a minute there it seemed like it'd be more. Maybe I missed something, but even after completing the game, I felt it was like a pointless mechanic as far as like taking pictures and being able to double expose them, except for one instance where, if you know, Safi is pretending to be somebody else, but using double exposure you can reveal her to reveal her identity through the photograph. But that was only one instance where it's utilized. If anything, the double exposure came from the play on words with Max being able to shift timelines, jump in between them, if I should say. And that was the gameplay. Some people would like to call it point and click. Yeah, I mean, you could say that. Obviously, click. It's not really a PC game, but is it on PC? I don't know. But yeah, as far as like console goes, I don't know if there's a better term, but yeah, point and click. Aesthetics. Amazing settings, amazing setups. Out of all the games, I'd have to say, yeah, True Colors has the best aesthetics. It is a beautiful game. And then you have the designs for the graphics, or I should just say graphics, and how they evolved over the years, especially after Life is Strange 2, that big jump into True Colors. Wow. And do the older games need this new upgrade? No. I definitely say no. They're fine as is, and there's already a remastered version of the older games anyway. Well, as far as... No, yeah, I think they all are. I don't know if Life is Strange 2 is. But yeah, they don't need a graphics update. They're fine as is. But, just seeing the overall evolution of this series is... Wow, it's amazing. Then the dialogue, I went into that a bit. The dialogue, it varies region by region. People do talk in different ways depending on where they are. I will say though, I hardly ever felt that the dialogue was, wow, people wouldn't say this, or man, I wish this phrasing was a little better, just for the sake of coming to a conclusion as far as my decision as a player. I felt more that way in Life is Strange Double Exposure. Quite a bit, actually, now that I think about it. Because the way certain things were phrased, it made me take a double take on where I wanted my character to go, or what I wanted them to do. Because I wasn't sure exactly, based on the phrasing, what I was insinuating or what I was doing. And that kind of tripped me up, but I felt like that. For the most part, the dialogue is pretty solid. Some people would even say especially cheesy and True Colors, and I will agree. They're having fun with the game. That's fine. You might even attribute it to remembering the innocence you had before growing up, is the best way I can describe it. Just being able to be silly, have fun, and it was a refreshing feeling. It was silly, but it was definitely refreshing. And then there's, especially, well, I think people would want to say this about every game after Life is Strange 1, even though you could also attribute it to the first game. How people want to say, oh, there's DEI, there's politics in the game. I mean, you can say that about any game if you really look hard enough. Do I think they include certain elements? Yes. Is it necessarily out of place? No. Especially in Double Exposure and Reunion, based on where Max is in college, and people are, how should I say this, sexually open? I mean, let's be honest. People used to talk about how experimentation in college was a thing. So I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. Me and my time in my university, I didn't do that. But I definitely saw people who did. And as far as like who the characters are, we see that in everyday life. It's nothing strange. No pun intended. So as far as like, are they trying to force an agenda or anything like that? No. I definitely don't. I never felt like the game was trying to force anything down my throat. It was just stuff that was happening. And if anything, the games always did a good job of letting it be my choice. I was never forced into anything. The characters always lived their life or made certain decisions based on my choices. So you can't say that, oh, the game was trying to force a narrative, etc. No, you create the narrative. And that's what a game should be. It should be left up to the player choice. So in that, there's no denying they did a good job. And anybody else who says that there's something more there, they're just looking too hard into it. I will say though, very modern, in this game particularly, Reunion, where there's a scene where security is talking to the local police. And they're trying to make them aware that there might be a situation on campus, the fire in particular, and that there could very well be some trouble happening. And police is just making it known that without any clear evidence, there's not much they can act on. They'll be aware of it, but they'll have to act at the moment's notice. And security concerned about the response time, and the officer responds, "Well, your students like to..." What was the wording? They like to praise that defund the police idea. Now they can put it into action. That was a very modern thing. That was a very modern thing, but you know what? It's true. And hey, that's a hell of a good example. People want to defund police, then they can expect that they're gonna be left to their own devices, unfortunately, or they won't have the resources and the funding to respond in time. Now, I'm not gonna lie, that was a pretty good example. It's messed up, but yeah, pretty good example. So that was a very modern take. There are modern takes in these games. So obviously it's based on real life to a degree. So there weren't any moments where I was like, oh, I hate this game, except for Life is Strange 2. I made that known in the short and also at the end of my review for the game, where a certain gameplay mechanic wasn't completely well implemented, and that set me back, and I didn't appreciate that at all, because it's rare for that to me to happen in game when it's not my own mistake. I can accept my lack of skill, but I won't accept any bad gameplay mechanics. What else do I want to say? I do want to talk about the memories that stuck with each game. I remember certain things more fondly than others, and I appreciated how unique each one was to a degree. As far as Life is Strange 1, solid entry into a series that we never even knew was coming at the time. We just thought it was a one-off, maybe, with some added content. With the mechanics of manipulating time, girl in small town with powers, a game where your choices influence other characters and your own story, and how that was new, and again, a very unique villain. And then we go into Life is Strange 2, and how we're on a journey, and we're just trying to do everything to survive and get to a certain destination, and the mechanic of saving money, which was a bit discarded after the second half, but it made sense for the sake of we were in a position where we really didn't need money anymore, because we were with somebody, basically a guardian, and I won't go into that too much, but and the game really emphasized you need to be careful about how you spend, otherwise you're going to be set back, or you're going to put your characters into a predicament as far as nutrition and what you're able to do in game. Oh, especially progress. Then True Colors, whole I was gonna say too, going back into Life is Strange 2, the whole thing about the powers, and that also a different take on psychic powers as far as like telekinesis, and then you jump into Life is Strange 2 Colors, and her abilities involve psychic reading to a degree, and also, yeah, I would say psychic reading based on people's auras, and how our character Alex interpreted that as emotions. And that was also a unique experience, and just being in that town, and also in that game, in the middle section of the game, how you have a whole turn-based section, and you're just going through that as if you're playing a tabletop game. And that was pretty interesting. Very well done. I would like to see a game on that with that kind of design. Maybe a more serious game. That'd be cool. And then obviously double exposure, and Max gains a new power, and you explore that. And then finally Reunion, where everything comes together, and you have the dynamic between Chloe and Max. And also Safi. Safi in double exposure and Reunion, how her abilities came into play as far as like as your character interactions and whatnot. A lot of interesting parts in all the games. So overall, this series is definitely going to be memorable in the long term. I would highly doubt anyone forgets Life is Strange in the future. There's always going to be at least one game that sticks with people. And yeah, just really, really good series as a whole. Is it perfect? No. What game is, right? Depending how you want to look at it. But yeah, really strong games for what they are. And as far as future projects go, I'm interested. Obviously, Max and Chloe's storyline has come to an end. Would they ever double back on Life is Strange 2 or True Colors? I don't know. I think those are self-contained stories where I think they're done, if I'm being honest. You could have even said Life is Strange 1 was done, but, you know, this added a well-added extra, I guess you could say. Because we really loved Chloe and Max as characters, and, you know, it was a very... Well, for me, in my playthrough, it was a very bittersweet reunion. Bittersweet ending, I should say, based on what happened. And yeah, as a player, I got to make up for the decisions I made back in the first game, so I really appreciated this. And definitely no, as far as the entire series is concerned, Max and Chloe are definitely the strongest protagonists, for sure, easily. Ranking wise, yeah, I would say Life is Strange 1, True Colors, and then the other ones are hard to rate. Well, except if I'm being honest, that's hard. It's between Life is Strange 2, Double Exposure, and Reunion as far as like 3rd, 5th, and 6th place. I mean 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. Because obviously Double Exposure and Reunion build off of Life is Strange 1, and then they can't stand alone. I feel like I stick to that. And then Life is Strange 2, it was good, but it had its flaws in the middle. I don't know. I had to think about that. That's tricky. No, that's tricky. They might be tied. As far as... Now, you know what? Life is Strange 1, True Colors, then Reunion. Life is Strange 2, and then finally Double Exposure. I think I would put it that way. Because if anything, Life is Strange Double Exposure is also a huge middle ground setup for Reunion. That's really what it is. And also, yeah, I did take some points off Reunion because as a final game, some plot points weren't cleared up, especially with the diamond thing. I felt that should have been revisited, or maybe they're just going to go into it later. I really have no idea. I don't think so, because this is the last in the series for this saga of Chloe and Max. There was that, and then there was also, as far as the who, I wouldn't say villains or antagonists. I guess I would say the cause of the overall, the people who caused the overall situation in the game. It turns out to be characters you don't really look at as far as like guilty parties. And for one, the motivations I say were completely unjustified, if not lacking. Just because I felt like we covered these emotions, these motivations back in Double Exposure, and they had no place being here. I kind of thought it was silly. And then on the other hand, the character did have a proper reasoning for their actions, but the game didn't really provide me enough context for me to get to that point to where I could say, oh, that person is going to be guilty in the future. And I felt that was lacking in the game. Maybe I missed something, but I did go play it again and try to deduce. But you know what? Maybe I messed up. That could be it. So yeah, when it came to snuffing out the two culprits, I don't know, I felt like the game was lacking there. Yeah. Like everything else was fine. It was just those points in the game. Oh yeah, and the soundtrack. The soundtrack was always hidden. The soundtrack for each game is definitely memorable for certain parts. And yeah, just a really good soundtrack for each one. I want to go back. I think I mentioned this before. But I want to go back and listen to each game soundtrack, because they're always like this one particular one that stuck with me. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm playing this game. This is the game I'm playing because of the sound. But yeah, we had a really good time. I definitely, yeah, as I said before, this game is definitely gonna stand the test of time. This series, I should say. And if we get more, I'm actually looking forward to it. I want to see what they do. But yeah, that's Life is Strange in 2026. If you guys stuck around and saw the videos, thank you guys so much for watching. And I apologize if I wasn't able to articulate everything well. There's a lot to think about, and I wrote like some topics down, but I didn't really like write out exactly what I wanted to say. But yeah, something to think about. I'll see you guys in the next series or next project I do. This has been Golden Boy. Take care.